While we get our next speaker kind of geared up here, his title is Planning Leadership in Science, Developing the Bandera Well Longevity Model. And I believe, Dave Mock, you're going to present with James. Is that right? Okay, portion of it. So this is James Golab. But, you know, they said don't read the introductions out of the back, so I'm not going to do that. But I did see James present a while back. Those of you with the board, this guy's cool, isn't he? And I finally filled out why. There's 3 men at this conference that you can name as Keystone Cowboys. Do y'all know what that is? Come on, somebody know what a Keystone Cowboy is? What's the Keystone State? Pennsylvania is a Keystone State. Hal Needham is a Keystone Cowboy. Dirk Aaron is a Keystone Cowboy. And James Golab is a Keystone Cowboy and even knows where my hometown is. So I present to you James. He's a really, really interesting soul.
Thank you. You know, a lot of people have been coming up to me and saying, I'm really looking forward to your talk. So, you know, no pressure that you're going to do a great job on this. So I've been sort of dreading this. I'm like, am I going to be able to meet expectations? I don't know. So as Dirk pointed out, I'm going to be talking about a model that was created by the Innovative Water Technologies Department at the Texas Water Development Board. I am the manager of that department. Our department looks at aquifer storage and recovery projects, aquifer recharge, desalination and reuse. And one of the main things I wanted to focus on with this talk was our communication with both the city of Bandera and the Bandera County River Authority and Groundwater District, because we developed this model to answer some specific questions for them. And if you were at Hal's keynote talk yesterday, one of the things he brought up was communication. And when he was talking about communication to people on the ground. But I think it works just as well here, and talking about our communication with a stakeholder and what they needed and helping them answer a question that may be pressing for them. So I'm also going to be, as Dirk pointed out, presenting with Dave Mock, who is the general manager of the Bandera County River Authority and Groundwater District, and I had to practice saying that like several times. And Rebecca Gibson was going to be here, but she is unfortunately not feeling well, but she was going to be talking, and she is the mayor of the city of Bandera, both of whom we worked with very closely in developing this model. So just to start off, if you are unfamiliar with the terms aquifer storage and recovery and aquifer recharge, I just wanted to go through a few definitions and tell you what we're talking about and what led up to us making this model. Aquifer storage and recovery is the use of a well to inject water into an aquifer, specifically for later beneficial reuse, withdrawal and use. Aquifer recharge, on the other hand, is the controlled recharge of an aquifer at the surface through various methods. This can be through bank infiltration, infiltration basins. It can be used for later recovery. It can also be used for various other means, such as improving groundwater quality or improving water table levels. And with this, why do you do ASR, or in some cases, AR? It increases the duration of your existing water supply availability. You're able to take water that you are currently potentially have a permit for, a diversion for, and store it for later use when you need it. This can be done for various different goals, like meeting seasonal peak demands, storing water in the winter when you have it, versus withdrawing it in the summer when it's hot, when it's 107 degrees, like it was yesterday, apparently. You can use it for potentially environmental protection. You can use it for emergency supply. You have a drought coming through the area like we do now. Aquifer storage and recovery has several advantages over surface water storage, big reservoirs. The drift and mixing losses are often less than evaporative losses. You know, it's August in Texas. We've all been outside today, and it is hot, and evaporation losses can be immense in this state. It is commonly more cost and time efficient to do ASR studies, and it has less surface environmental impact. So these are some of the reasons you may look at doing ASR, or a GCD or a water utility may look at it. So right now in Texas, there are 7 operational ASR or AR projects. There are 4 ASR projects include the earliest one, which is El Paso. SAWS in San Antonio here has an ASR project. Kerrville, which is particularly of interest here because that would be the closest to the city of Bandera. And the newest one, the city of Buda. There are also 3 AR projects across the state. All of these are denoted by the stars on this map. There are 5 pilot testing ASR AR projects and 4 authorized by TCEQ right now. And you can see they're all across the state. This is a growing interest. If you were in the legislative panel earlier today, you will have heard the word ASR and how much growing interest there is in ASR technology across the state. So when we look at future ASR and AR in Texas, there are a lot of projects planned for Texas, both in the near future and in the far future. In 2023, the Texas legislature, as I'm sure you heard, passed Senate Bill 28, which became the Texas Water Fund, and part of that included the New Water Supply for Texas Fund. $250 million dedicated to new water supplies, as Senator Perry was pointing out in the legislative panel. And one of the technologies that's specifically called out in that bill is aquifer storage and recovery. In the 2022 State Water Plan, 13 of the 16 regional water planning groups have an ASR project as either an alternative water management strategy or a recommended water management strategy, or in the cases of Region G and C, they have both. This will account for approximately, according to the State Water Plan, 193,000 acre-feet per year of supply by 2070, which is about 3% of the total new supply. So a relatively substantial amount of water. This includes 37 new ASR well fields and 3 AR surface infiltration basin projects. They have, relatively, the capital costs, you can look at how much they cost per project. They can be very variable depending on the geology, the location, how much you have to, how deep you have to drill your wells. But these projects can face multiple challenges, such as what are you going to store in the, you need an available water source to add to store. You need suitable geology. You need an aquifer where you can store this water, where you can then also recover it. You need an interested utility that's willing to put in the time, to put in the public-facing meetings and tell people and get people interested in the project. It needs to make economic sense for the utility, and public perception and expectations, like what is this going to do for the project? People, everybody in this room works with water on a daily basis. But when you say aquifer storage and recovery to the general public, they may not know what that means or what to expect if a project goes, in their area. So this brings us to why we do this study. In 2019, Texas passed House Bill 721, which tasked the Texas Water Development Board to do 2 specific things: to conduct a statewide survey on aquifer suitability for ASR and AR projects in Texas. That project was released in 2020. It's available online. And it also mandated the TWDB to conduct ASR and AR studies as identified in the state water plan or by interested persons, and report the results of these studies. And so that's where Innovative Water Technologies comes in. We are working with these, with utilities, and so we went into determine how we were going to do these projects and what we were going to do about them. And the first thing we did is we looked at all the ASR and AR projects in the state water plan and the regional water plan at the time, and contacted every one of the utilities and saw where they were with the project, what they needed done. And we're looking for some specific things. We wanted to know where we could help. So if a project, for example, was already in, oh, we've got a pilot well drilled and we're now pump testing it, we've contracted with a private entity, there's really not much we could do at that point. But if it was just getting off the ground, we could potentially develop a project. So we contacted multiple different places, and one of them was the city of Bandera. And with that, we talked to the Bandera County River Authority and Groundwater District, as well as the city of Bandera. And we wanted to know what they needed. And so that is where I'm going to turn it over to Dave for a little bit to talk about the city and or the county and what the current conditions are and the drought that we've been facing most recently. There's the
Got it. Now, the real reason I'm up here is I heard he was talking about Bandera, so I decided to hijack his talk today, make it a little more lively. But anyway, Bandera County is in a very severe drought. Our areas around us have seen some rains, they've seen it alleviate, they've seen some relief from it. But for whatever reason, we're not getting that there. If you look at the U.S. Drought Monitor, it's like there's a thumb on us. Now, there's some theories I have some personal theories about why maybe that's happening. Maybe it's something to do with the ratio of churches to bars, that it doesn't rain in Bandera anymore. I don't know. But that's for another talk and another conference. So basically, we got three different levers here when we're trying to mitigate this drought. And in this area, we're getting most of our production out of the Middle Trinity for domestic livestock wells. We're getting stuff for the city of Bandera, mostly out of the Lower Trinity. And in Bandera County, there is no natural known communication between the Middle and Lower Trinity. If it's there, we haven't found it. We've age dated that water in the Lower Trinity, and we found that it's about 20,000 years old. So we have a mining situation going on here. And when we're in this kind of drought, you see we've got multiple things that are happening. We know it's getting hotter and drier there. For whatever reason it is, it seems like the desert is starting to bump up on us. We also have some geological conditions that when it does rain, sometimes it runs off. But the only lever we can really pull is human activity. So right now, one of the key things I've heard throughout this conference is getting out communication with the public. So one of the things we've done through this drought is communication, trying to get people to realize they need to conserve. And that's the main lever, unfortunately, we can pull. Now, I just wanted to show this up real quick. You can imagine with this drought, what this is doing was trying to achieve our DFC. The drought is punishing, and it's been going on for quite a while now. And I'll show you that here in a second. And you can see our DFC trend line is steadily going downwards. And that's going to make us have to make some hard decisions in the next few years through our GMA process. Now, the rainfall in Bandera County, here's the problem we have. We get a feast or famine. And lately, it's been more famine. And what I've been saying is it's been getting hotter and drier. We got a few wet years, and then everything else is below what they consider average, if there is an average rainfall in that area. Most of it just seems to be not enough. We get somewhat of a flood, then you get an average. So the worry that we do have is that this trend is going to be more long-term. Nobody knows. They can make theories, they can make guesses, they can speculate, but this might be the new reality in that area. It just might. I hope it's not, because it's getting troubling of what we're seeing happen with the aquifer. Now, when we circle back to what I said earlier about a mining situation in the Lower Trinity, the question we had is, how much time does the city of Bandera have? It's been asked for years. Okay, we know it's a mining situation. We know the water's ancient. We know that their wells are dropping. How much time do they have? And when Water Development Board reached out to us, that was one of the questions I had to them. And as usual, they came back with some science-based answers, or at least some really educated answers through this study. Now, I put this up here also to show some of the other conditions in Bandera County. That's Medina Lake. It's at 3.5%. It ticked up a little bit. It's at historical lows. The Sabinal and the Medina River, which are headwaters of the Nueces and the San Antonio system, for all intents and purposes, aren't really flowing anymore. The Medina's pulled up. I live in the headwaters of the Medina, and it's pulled. Vast parts of it looks like there hasn't been water there in a long time. So the conditions in Bandera County are getting to be more and more severe, and hopefully we will get some rain, but we needed those answers from Water Development Board. And then, you want this one?
Sure.
All right, like I said, I just want to come up here and speak my piece, hijack his thing, move on.
All right. Thanks, Dave. So as Dave pointed out, the city of Bandera is facing some serious water supply challenges, as well as the entire county. There is massive projected population growth. In the past 30 years, the population of Bandera County has increased 137%. A lot of people want to move to the hill country. A lot of people want to move to Texas, and you've heard this probably over and over again at this conference. Water is a big deal, and we need it to support people here in Central Texas and all over Texas. The Lower Trinity Aquifer is the sole supply source. It's not entirely true, and that was a point from earlier one. The city of Bandera has 4 water supply wells. 3 of them are in the Lower Trinity. They do have one in the Middle Trinity that was more recently drilled, but the vast majority of their water comes out of the Lower Trinity, which, as Dave pointed out, is being mined. It is not recharging very rapidly, and the water level is rapidly dropping. The graph on the left-hand side of the screen there shows historic water levels going back from the 1950s to present in the 3 different Lower Trinity wells for the city of Bandera. And you don't have to be a scientist to see the distinct lowering trend that is seen in most of the wells. These wells are, and as I mentioned, there's only 3 Lower Trinity wells. There's not a whole lot of room for any of them to go down. There's no room for redundancy. And they're already reaching near their production capacity as they're currently configured. When we talked to the water operators at the city of Bandera, we asked, how long does it take for the wells to draw down to the pump? And the answer we were given was minutes. So there is very little redundancy, and so we worked with them to determine what this study was going to be. They were concerned with the increased demand due to their population growth. They're considering alternative water supplies, including aquifer storage and recovery, and they needed to understand how increased pumping could affect the lifespan of their wells. So we set out with a goal to estimate the longevity of the city's Lower Trinity wells based on the aquifer levels and their well configuration. And we did 2 different parts to this, and we did an operational analysis of the wells, as particularly of one of the wells, as they are, and then we did the longevity model, which I'll get into a little bit. Of course, I've already been up here, but between me and Dave up here for about 19 minutes, so we could go for an entire hour on this model. I am not a modeler, too. Azah, who is the actual modeler, is here if you have questions that involve linear algebra or any of that. I'm just the manager. So anyway, for operational analysis, we took a look at where the wells are and what, how they're configured. As mentioned, there's 3 Lower Trinity wells. We focused on one of the wells, which was also known as the Mulberry Street well. The reason we chose this well is there was complete data. It completely penetrated the Lower Trinity aquifer, and it is their best producing well and produces about 42% of the city's overall production. This well runs for about 3.6 hours a day at 480 gallons a minute, so it produces just over 100,000 gallons a day. Vince gave a great talk starting out this session about the stratigraphy and the Trinity. But if you look at these wells, they are 842 foot deep. They're cased until 740 feet. The dark green up on that up on the diagram of the well is the Upper Trinity, which is the Upper Glen Rose limestone. It's unconfined in Bandera County. The lighter green is the Middle Trinity aquifer, which includes the Cow Creek, the Hensel, and the Lower Glen Rose. And then the orange at the bottom is the Lower Trinity aquifer, or the Hostin Sand. And in these wells, it is open hole in all but in 2 of the 3 wells. One of them is screened down to the Hammett Shale. So when we're looking at these wells, right now you have a water table. There's about 46 feet of drawdown, and that goes almost right to the pump. And the well can be lowered down into the Middle Trinity aquifer, but it cannot be lowered into the Lower Trinity because it is an open hole. If you were to put that, I believe it's 60 horsepower pump down into there, you'd be sucking up sand and doing nothing good to your high lifts pumps. So, what was the critical criteria? The pump needs to remain above the bottom of the well casing, and the water level needs to remain above the pump. So, and you need a full recovery between sessions. So, we used an operational analysis using several different equations to look at what the well does. We looked at how the well acts right now. It has about 46 foot of drawdown. If we were to increase the supply, so we did that, if we increased to the existing supply as denoted in the state water plan, what the city is going to need, you'll see that you now have 91 feet of drawdown. And so the pump needs to be lowered about 45 feet to reach that. Then we looked at, well, how much can this well actually pump? What would it take to draw down the water all the way to the Lower Trinity? Well, at 480 gallons a minute, it would run for 21 hours and produce over 600,000 gallons per day. That's a lot of water. And so when you first look at this, that looks good. The existing Trinity aquifer supply for the city is about 476,000 gallons per day. And so the Mulberry Street well would only need to produce 198, almost 200,000 gallons per day. So this looks relatively good. However, this kind of operational analysis, only looks at one well. When you start adding in cones of depression of other wells, the calculations get very complex, and computationally, it doesn't tell you much. The other thing is it's only one snapshot in time. This is how it's operating now. And so if you recall back to the graph, water levels in the Lower Trinity are declining. So in the future, it's not going to look like that. So you can't use this kind of method to look into the future. So that's when we turn to the longevity model. So this is a mod flow model. It is based off of the Hill Country Trinity GAM model. This was created to investigate the future conditions and project into the future. You can see, again, going through the Trinity aquifer stratigraphy, as they pointed out, most of the production in Bandera County is in the upper to middle Trinity. Only a few wells are down in the Lower Trinity aquifer. So there was very little data down there. So we looked over the entire area, and then we also made some changes. So when we developed the Bandera well longevity models, we started with the TWDB GAM model. And then we made some updates to specifically focus in on Bandera County. The first thing was, at the time, the Hill Country Trinity brackish resources aquifer characterization system, BRACS report had just come out. So we took the existing GAM model and we replaced the layers with the new updated stratigraphic interpretations. We refined the mesh. So GAM models generally have a 1 mile by 1 mile grid that's used for the modeling. Over top of Bandera County, as you'll see on the lower left here, we refined that to a 1/4 mile grid. We added pumping volumes from across the county. This included municipal and estimated agricultural across the entire Hill Country Trinity GAM model from 1998 to 2018. When we then looked at history matching, we ran the model, we corrected to get a good match with how the Trinity Aquifer had been acting. This also included all of Bandera County had been in one hydraulic conductivity zone in the larger GAM model, but we had to add a new one around the city to get the wells to match up, to get a good match between the historical data and the current data. And so this is the output of that model. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the historic period. That's that black line. It's too far away for me to point, and I don't like it. I just pointing that out. You'll see a yellow line there that shows the historical data, and we had a pretty good match. I believe the overall residual difference was less than 10%, which is, I've been told, good. And then we projected it out to the future. We projected, as you can see here, out to 2080. And so we did 3 different scenarios. We did a no change. So basically we said, okay, if the city of Bandera keeps pumping exactly like it is right now until 2080, what's it gonna look like? And that's scenario 1, that's that blue line. You can see that after about 16 years, they'll need to lower the pump, but it's a sustainable production. The water never gets into mining conditions. It continues to be able to use it. However, as Dave pointed out, and we talked about, Bandera is growing. People want to move out to the hill country. So population and pumping is expected to rise. So that's where we get into scenario 2. This uses the projected population growth from the state water plan. And well reaches in this scenario, the pumps need to be lowered after 2 years, and the well reaches its operational limit after 29 years. This is the most likely scenario. This is following population growth in the state water plan. And then finally, we wanted to push the model to its limits. We wanted to see what would happen in the worst case scenario, to see the worst. And this became known as the Dave Mock Armageddon scenario, when you just turn the pumps on tomorrow at maximum capacity. And what happens? Well, nothing good. This is unlikely, but in that case, the model says you have 1 year to operational limit and 5 years until the water table is at the top of the Trinity. So what are the conclusions from the study? Well, these wells currently meet the city's needs, but they're reaching their pumping limits. The pumps can be lowered to meet some increased demand, but are vulnerable to well failures. In addition, increased demand is increasing the cone of depression around the city of Bandera, which is shown on the left, which is over time after the top one is the current cone of depression, according to the model. The second one is after 11 years, and the third one is after 29 years. Bandera's estimated groundwater supply is almost twice its current use. However, there is 30% projected population growth by 2070, and as they pointed out, the lower Trinity is dropping. And so, in the end, the city has approximately 29 years to implement new water supplies. This report is available online. It was published in February of 2023. This QR code leads to the study page. You can download the GIS data as well as the model data and the full report. Keep that up there for a second. And it was at this point that Rebecca, unfortunately, was going to be talking a little bit about, the city and their current plans, but I looked up a few things that she was going to. The model, we had pumping data and drawdown data, average data until 2018. Last night, and we looked at the recorder well, TWDB recorder well level from Bandera County. It has dropped 80 feet since 2020. That's a lot. And if you recall, you have about 194 feet to play with. And so that is, a big deal. So the city of Bandera is currently working on some things to reduce their pumping load on their wells. They're looking at currently in the process of relocating and updating their wastewater treatment. Currently, they discharge to the Medina River, but they're looking at ways to reuse that water for other uses to take the load off of their potable production. And they're also looking at improving their distribution system. They just released a groundwater conservation plan to look at decreasing water loss, and they've been upgrading some of their systems from ground storage to elevated storage, and with that, improved high lift pumps and improved infrastructure. So that's what we have.
Well, James, we appreciate you. Let's give James a round of applause and our good friend Dave Mock.